Hey everyone, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. I want to talk about the problem with working in comics, and I think there are some symptoms of the problems of working in comics, and then there are the real problems or the root of the issue. So we're gonna get into this, and we're gonna look specifically at this article called "Seriously, Don't Be a Comic Book Artist, Just Don't." So we're gonna look at that first, though. Fatal is on Indiegogo right now. If you haven't backed it, check it out. It's in the link in the description below. Back it, help us get to that 90K stretch goal, and everyone's books are going to get better. Also, Downcast, I just added some new things here. These are the last of the books right now. Volume 1 and Volume 2, I have them. I did inventory, they're counted out, and that is all that's left, including we do have some pages, 5 pages left of original art. So check that out again in the link in the description below. All right, so this is Pipeline Comics. When was this published? October 2018. How have things changed? I actually think working in comics has probably gotten more difficult since 2018. I remember it well. 2 years ago, there were issues with the comic book industry, but now in a post-COVID world, things are even more different and more strange. So there's this saying in business that sells cures all. I think that's the correct way to say it. And basically that means it doesn't matter what kind of problems are going on in your business. If you can get more sales, you're always going to be good. Basically, that'll fix everything. Is just getting more sales. You're getting more cash flow. That is true in comics, and I think ultimately that is what makes this whole house of cards stand. That is sales. It's the most boring. It's the last thing creative people want to do, and ultimately, it's the number one thing that's going to give you a career in comics. Whether you're doing the sales or a publisher's doing the sales, that's what everything stems from, is sales happening. I get questions quite a bit, probably like 3 times a week, from people that say, "Hey, I found your channel. I've been watching your stuff, and I I want to know. I've got this book I want to do, and can I do it? Basically, what do I need to do to make it happen, and be a successful comic book creator?" I hear so many of these people, uh, and I get it because I'm one of you. I'm one of them. And ultimately, what it comes down to is obviously you want to be good at your craft, all that kind of stuff, the creative stuff. You want to have that down. Even if you have that down, if you don't have sales down, nothing else matters. There's a lot of examples of this as well. Several comic book professionals that are afraid to move from working for Marvel and DC to then working in, doing their own crowdfunding books, their own creator-owned stuff, because they're afraid of the sales component. They're examples of people trying it and failing, even though they do good stuff. They've got good-looking books. I've seen them on Indiegogo. They happen all the time. So, in my opinion, the root of the problem, the reason why comic book artists are telling you, seriously, don't be a comic book artist, just don't, is because the industry is not healthy enough to support such a life choice. Now, obviously, I'm speaking as in a whole. Things need to change, is my point. Ultimately, the price of comics is important, how much demand there are for comics, and how much does it cost to produce those comics. These are all important things. And if you're looking at it from the how much does it cost to produce level, that's always where the squeeze is going to happen. It's going to happen on the creator. And so you can either be willing to work for less and less and less, or you're not going to work in comics. Basically, that's the way it has been. So the first comment here is career suicide. The worst decision you can make as a creator is to pursue a career as a comic book artist. There's very little upside in it. There's no money in comics. The only money is in licensing. Is that how you wish to pursue your creative agenda, dealing with lawyers? For a select few, there's superstar status in the comic community and bidding wars over your services that might kick off once you're a full-time employee at Marvel or DC. That will only last for a few years at best. Graham Nolan actually mentioned something on this that he's seen it. He's been the new guy. He's been the guy that everyone's asking about, and then eventually get to the point where people say, "Who's that? Who's Graham Nolan?" Um, it happens all the time, over and over and over again. So how does this change? I think the problem is actually working for big companies that have readers coming for their characters. They're not coming for the creators. They're coming for their characters. And so thinking of the comic book industry a little bit more like the rest of publishing at large or even independent films, I think honestly that's a smarter way to do it. But when you think about it in comics, it's so different in that everything is built, the core of comics is built around these big characters, these owned IP. Yeah, there are some, there are indie comics things happening for sure, but the core of the market are these same characters over and over again that you can't possibly hope to own a piece of. Uh, that's fundamentally at its core a reason why there's not money in comics in this sense. Uh, so that's difficult. You don't see that in film as much. I mean, actually, lately they just keep remaking everything. But traditionally speaking, they're making new stuff. They're not just making, it's just not like years and years and years and years of the same characters. And that is seen as the pinnacle of success, is working on these characters that have been around forever. So maybe the pinnacle of success is having your own thing, creating something new. Uh, that's a better route to go. But still, you have to crawl over sales. The reason why these core characters have been so important to the comic book industry is because they sell comics. Just because it's a Batman book, it's guaranteed to sell some number of books. If you're making up some new character that you've got a great story idea for, it's just going to sell better if it's Batman, unless you can do something about it and get sales. All right, so here he says, just before I posted this essay, Phil Hester tweeted this. Comic book careers are like musical ones. A vanishingly small number of us can fill arenas. A lucky few get a hit or two and can tour our whole careers. Most are gigging at local venues. Some just jamming in the garage. Not just some. I'd say most are just jamming in the garage. He brings up healthcare. This isn't anything new. It's not about comics, though. This is about literally anything. If you're thinking of being self-employed, the healthcare matters. Okay. Career suicide, part 2. That's the end game with being a freelance comic book artist. Or what's the end game? You work until the day you die if you're lucky. If not, you're hoping for help from Actor. I don't know. Is that the comic? The fund? Is that what that is? Actor. The thing is, I hear conflicting information here because I know that there are comic book artists that are getting royalties and writers getting royalties from things that have been made into film, and I have to wonder if comic book characters were not so popular in film and television right now, would being a comic book artist be even a worse job, right? If you think about that, like Ethan has said, the fact that they're going to be making the Green Lantern Corps TV series means that he's going to get a big fat paycheck. What if they weren't making those? Would it be less worth being a comic book creator? It's kind of maddening to even think about. All right, it's a never-ending treadmill that, if you're lucky, doesn't kill you early. There are certain ways to make this better. I think there are some artists who are beginning to realize that they are actually entrepreneurs and are running their creative life more like a business. In the long run, those people stand a chance. It involves creator ownership and building a library of being your own best marketer and several other things. All right. And that comes down to marketing, sales. They're both related. Um, the excuses are off the table if you insist to be a comic book artist. All right. Be an artist, not a comic book artist. So even here, he's discouraging you from working in comics. Specialize in design or illustration or animation. Don't specialize in comic books. Don't make comic book production your sole source of income. Whatever you do, don't make that mistake. Yes, at the beginning, you might need to be heads down drawing to build up a library to capitalize off in the long term. That might be residual sales or just in the reputation that you can do the work. Have you seen the mess Marvel and DC are in these days? Do you want to rely on them to pay your mortgage and rent every month? They can't responsibly schedule a series that gives creatives the time to get the work done. All right, so here's one more thing I want to point out is that crowdfunding, you'll hear a lot of people touting crowdfunding as the future. I think it's part of the future, but some of the harsh realities are somebody my size, I don't think I could successfully run 4, 6, 8 campaigns in a single year like some other bigger creators can because I'm asking too much of a small group of people, you know. I can't see that happening. I would see diminishing returns, I believe. So, what does that mean? You either have to hit a home run on a single campaign, you have to hit a home run, or the other option is you have you got to diversify where you're getting money from, how you're making money making comics. Is it all coming from a single crowdfunding campaign once per year, or are there going to be other ways that you're going to bring in some money? More likely, and the more smart, I guess, conservative way that I would think about this is, of course, you're going to have to diversify. How do you do that in comics? I don't know. I'm going to be looking a little bit more into that and probably doing some videos in the future. But what I see is a lot of people coming backup plan. There we go. I'm going to focus on crowdfunding here for the rest. I see a lot of people coming thinking that crowdfunding is going to be the savior. Basically, they're going to come to crowdfunding, and it's the destination. I would say it's crucial. It's an important part of the destination. It's proven to work for many people. But I still think that there's got to be more to be done in order for it to be viable long-term careers. For a part-time thing, that's great, but for it to be viable full-time career working in comics just based off crowdfunding, I think there needs to be a little bit more in place. Anyway, so let me know what you think about all this. Again, it comes down to sales, whether you're working in the mainstream or doing your own thing. And it's not fun. It's not the fun part of making comics. Maybe it is. Maybe you think that's fun. But it's an important part. It can be fun. So anyway, thanks for listening to the video. Appreciate it. Don't forget to check out Fatal on Indiegogo and then Downcast. These are both in demand, and Downcast is shipping basically immediately. I need some proper mailers to send out these original art pages, but everything else I'm on top of. We're sending things out. So thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.